In the past few years in Oregon, there has been something called the Greater Idaho Movement, with the idea that some eastern Oregon counties might fit in better politically with Idaho. Several counties have taken votes, and many of them have approved the idea of forming committees or groups to explore the process. Changing a U.S. border is a complicated thing. Both state legislatures and the U.S. Congress have to approve of the changes. There are many questions to be answered, including what happens if some counties want to join and others don't. Would there be a patchwork where a traveler would go in and out of Oregon? And would Idaho be willing to pay for the far-flung infrastructure needs of eastern Oregon? But there is an even more relevant question, and to examine it, we are going to look at a few past elections. I got these maps from uselectionatlas.org, and at first I thought maybe I should reverse the colors, since that site uses the older pattern of red for the Democratic Party and blue for the Republican Party. But I think using these colors works because it shows that red state, blue state itself is not even 20 years old, only being popularized in 2004. The first election shows the 1996 election, and in this cycle, the same year that I started college, Oregon's politics were less polarized, and Bill Clinton managed to win some rural farming counties and came close in others. Going back to 1976, the pattern is even further from the present day. At that time, several eastern Oregon counties were solidly Democratic, and they were easily more Democratic-leaning than areas like the Portland suburbs, such as Washington County. And when we go back to 1960, the political map has almost no relation to our current climate. At that time, Portland and its suburbs were solidly Republican, while the Democratic Party was strong in rural communities, probably based on support from farmers and union timber workers. The county I live in, Benton, currently one of the most Democratic counties in Oregon, was at the time the most Republican. Additionally, Idaho has not always been so conservative. The year I was born, one of the leading liberal Democrats in the U.S. Senate was Frank Church of Idaho, who wasn't alone, as other liberal Democrats such as Mike Mansfield from Montana and George McGovern from South Dakota also came from what are now red states. So the basic question for the Greater Idaho Movement is, what if we move the borders, a process that will probably take some time, and then the political climate changes? Do we just move the borders back? Do we shift borders every decade or so as preferences change? It could be argued that certain elections that I cited, such as 1996, were special circumstances. But that is actually part of the point. Many things can happen in politics. They're all as black swans and dark horses, and realigning elections that change the political climate. The current alignment of political forces in the U.S. is a temporary thing, and the idea that the country should be divided up into areas that belong to red and blue fiefdoms is a ridiculous idea in historical context. Which isn't to say that there aren't other reasons, such as simple logistics, that changing state borders might make sense, but the current political dichotomy isn't one of them.